Your Lovable website is not indexable or findable by Google, and you will have terrible SEO unless you fix this one thing. So the issue with Lovable is that it doesn't support server-side rendering out of the box or static site generation. So when a robot, a crawler from Google looks at your site, as you can see here, it will just see a white screen. The user will see the application or the content, but the crawlers will see a white screen. Because if we take a look at the code here, it is generating, well, after the page is loaded, all this code that shows the content, the text, all the content that would be on the page that would be used for SEO, all the keywords, right? That is all being loaded into it. But if you take a look, if Google looks at it, it doesn't see any of that. So it doesn't know what your website is about, so it can't index it. That's the big problem. So how do we fix this? We can fix this using static site generation. Now, the issue with Lovable's hosting is, out of the box, it's static file hosting, which is causing this specific issue. So what we need to do is we need to build a custom sitemap, and we need to host our application or website with Netlify, which support pre-rendering. Let's take a look at this. So in Lovable here, we need to ask following thing before we connect it with GitHub. Let's say I plan on hosting my app with Netlify. Optimize the project for that. That's everything I need to ask Lovable to do. It will now create a couple of files that will help Netlify understand and build your application. Now, while it's doing that, we can connect it already with GitHub. Next to the publish button, there's this little icon of a cat. Click on that icon and then click on connect with GitHub. Now, you need to connect a project. Now, first, I think we need to wait till Lovable is ready in, setting this up before we can connect it and it's done. Take a look at this. Now we can connect a project. You can create a new project here by just adding one and logging into your GitHub account, which is super simple. Just always click on allow. But I already have my account selected, so I'll just click on this one here. Let's transfer the project so version control will be managed by GitHub and not Lovable. Now it's transferring the project to GitHub, which can take a couple of seconds. Okay, and now we can take a look at it. So now our project is on GitHub. With it being on GitHub, we can now go into Netlify. We can add a new project in Netlify, import an existing project. We'll select GitHub here, and now we'll log into our GitHub account. Continue. There you go. Now we're logged in. And now we can look for our project here. So what was our project called again? On GitHub, it was Quill Spark Folio. Okay, let's take a look at this. Where is Quill Spark Folio? Let's open this one. And now we're just going to deploy this application down here. Now we'll be deploying the application. This can take a couple of seconds, sometimes up to 30 seconds for it to be built. And now this should be all fine. Now, it could be that there is a build error and that will get a white screen when opening the application. But no, it all seems to be fine. Take a look at this. Perfect, because we asked it to optimize it with the Netlify TOML file. There you go. Make sure you publish and update everything correctly. Let's publish anyway. That should be fine. So now we're good to go. Now, here's the thing. There are a couple of components to this. In Netlify, we can enable something that's called pre-rendering, which will essentially create a copy of all pages in your application that are rendered using JavaScript. So after the page was loaded, and it will create a static file that then is specifically made for crawlers to get only the content that they need. But we also need a sitemap and we need a dynamic sitemap. That's the second component to this whole thing. So let's start with one first. Let's go into our project configuration and we'll go here to build and deploy and then continuous deployment. If we scroll down here, we should see all the way down here a setting for post-processing. And you scroll down a little bit more and you take a look at pre-rendering. This will enable pre-rendering to allow crawlers used by search engines and social networks to see pages rendered by your app. This is exactly what you want. You can take a look at the documentation a little bit more to make sure that everything is optimized here. You have the pre-rendering extension for better visibility and performance, but it's a very simple to use feature that you can just enable. So you just go on pre-rendering, you go on configure, and you'll enable pre-rendering with Netlify. Let's save, and now pre-rendering is on. If we scroll a little bit down, there's also a pre-render plugin, if that is correct, or maybe they moved it. It's not in the plugins anymore. So if we take a look at this, the new pre-render plugin, let's take a look at that. Pre-render, why this new extension? Here's with new pre-rendering. Okay, I think we're fine. So here's what we're going to do. Let's copy this blog post here, right? And let's copy this documentation page inside of here, right? And now I'm going to go to Lovable. And I'm saying I have set up Netlify. The ultimate goal is to have their pre-rendering for great SEO, I need help though to figure out what I should do in Lovable to optimize for this. Let's take a look at this. To optimize for this, okay? And now we'll say, here are the docs. And I'm going to paste this link, and I'm going to paste their core documentation link for pre-rendering. Now, I am going to go back into Lovable, paste this, we'll go into chat mode, and now I'm going to send this into the Lovable chat mode so we can understand and come up with a plan and how we can optimize this project in Lovable to be optimized for Netlify's pre-rendering. Now it says, I'll be happy to help you optimize your project for Netlify's pre-rendering feature. Let me first gather more information about what Netlify pre-rendering requires. Let me take a look at the blog pages and other dynamic content pages. It's very likely that we need to create a cloud function that will give us an array, a list of all our blog posts that then will be deployed as a Netlify cloud function. That's my assumption without having to have looked too deep into the documentation. But let's see what Lovable says. Now I have a comprehensive understanding of your project and what Netlify's pre-rendering feature requires. Let me explain what's happening and what you need to optimize. Understanding Netlify's pre-rendering for SPA's single page applications. Netlify's pre-render extension works by detecting crawler traffic, Google, Bing, social media bots, and serving them a fully pre-rendered static HTML snapshot of your page instead of the JavaScript-dependent SPA version. This is critical because your current setup, React SPA, where content loads via JavaScript, the problem search engines may not see dynamic loaded content, like blog posts. The solution, pre-rendering, captures a static snapshot for crawlers. Current state analysis. Your project has good robots.txt allowing all crawlers. Basic meta tags in index.html. Security headers in Netlify TOML. Missing. Dynamic per-page meta tags critical for SEO. Missing sitemap for search engines. Structured data, JSON DLD for rich snippets. Missing canonical URLs. The key issue, your current meta tags are static in index.html. Every crawler, including blog posts, show these same meta tags when Googlebot and Twitter's crawlers visit, for example, a blog page. They see generic metadata instead of the actual post title and description. Plan. Optimize for Netlify's pre-rendering and SEO. First, install and configure React Helmet Async. Add React Helmet Async to manage per-page meta tags automatically. This library allows each page component to define its own title, meta tags, and open graph data. Step 2. Create SEO component. Build a reusable SEO component that accepts props like title, description, image, URL, type, publish date, and author for blog posts. Step 3. Update all pages with SEO component. Add the SEO component to each page: home, site, tagline, and hero description, pricing specific title descriptions, and we can skip that part. Step 4. Add dynamic blog post meta tags. The most critical fix. Each blog post will have title, description, image, type, publish date, author. Generate dynamic sitemap. Create an Edge function that generates sitemap XML dynamically by listing all static pages, querying the database for all published blog post slugs, returning proper XML sitemap format, update robots.txt, add JSON LD structured data. What you need to do in Netlify dashboard. After I implemented these changes, you'll need to go to Netlify dashboard, site extensions, install the pre-render extension, configure which user agents to pre-render for Google, Bing, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Okay, this is great. Let's implement this plan. So now this will implement the plan to have a great SEO setup so we can get indexed by Google and we're not invisible to it. And with every build, it will then dynamically make sure that those pages are pre-rendered correctly. Now, pre-rendering and having this all crawling and working successfully can sometimes take up to 24 hours. So we may need to check back with this specific test tool a little bit later, just so that you are aware of that. So now Lovable is starting to work on all those changes. They do take a little bit, but let's make sure that we have this all set up correctly. So Lovable told us to make sure that we have the pre-render extension. Site extensions install pre-render extension. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's go to, in here, extensions. Where do we have extensions? Builds extensions. Okay, we'll take a look at pre-render. Okay, Netlify pre-render extension, early access. Let's click on this and let's install this. We probably also need to install this so we can use it in the other one. This extension automatically serves pre-rendered HTML to crawlers, AI tools, so you can also get your website, indexed by ChatGPT, Claude, and all of those AI tools. How you should use this if your site is a single-page application built with React, Vue, Angular, or similar frameworks, then most of all information presented in a page is not incorporated into the site's HTML, but rather rendered on the client side using JavaScript. Many AI coding agents generate sites with that technology. So what's the problem? Not all crawlers run JavaScript embedded in the page. How it works. So it seems like this extension details may be important for Lovable, so I'm just going to copy this entire disclaimer here, this entire thing that you can find in the extension page. And I'm going to go into Lovable. It's already done with it as it seems. And let's just paste this inside of here in chat mode so we can reason a little bit more to make sure that this is all optimized. Let's take a look at it. So now it's thinking about it, and I want to know, did the changes that we have already implemented, are they working correctly with this, or is there something else that we need to do for this to work correctly? Let's see. So it's still thinking, which can take a little bit, because I assume it's doing some deep researching through our entire code base. This is great documentation. Okay. The key insight from this documentation is the window pre-render ready variable. This is how we can tell the pre-render extension when our async data has finished loading. Without it, the headless browser might capture the page before the blog posts load from the database, which is an issue. So we need to paste this documentation into it so Lovable correctly sets it up, because we can have pre-rendering on. If the pre-rendering starts before the page is fully loaded, it's not going to load it, and it's going to create a snapshot of an empty page, leading us back to square one. So let me check the current pages to understand what needs to be optimized. Now I have a clear picture. I can see 3 pages with async data loading that need optimization: home, blog, blog post, fetches individual blog post, because we also have a page for the individual blog post, because we also have a blog on our website. The problem right now, when Netlify's headless browser loads these pages, it might capture them in a loading state, showing skeleton loaders rather than with the actual content. This defects the purpose of pre-rendering for SEO. The solution: window.prerender ready. According to the docs you shared, if the site has a window pre-render ready variable in global scope, it is considered authoritative and should be set by your code to true when the page HTML is good to use. This is the key. We need to initialize window.prerender ready equals false on page load, set it to true once your async data has loaded. Plan: optimize for Netlify's pre-render extension. Okay, so now this is setting those variables. Let's implement the plan. Now it's doing the changes, and then we're good to go. Now this will take a little bit, so let's make a cut and let's take a look at it once it's done. So I got great news. Lovable now successfully implemented the window.prerender ready variable. And now I ask it, what is the edge function for the sitemap? And it says the sitemap edge function dynamically generates an XML sitemap for SEO by fetching published blog posts from the blog posts table, combining static routes with dynamic blog posts URL, returning XML. Now, the second part I want to say, could we register the static routes in a database and load them in besides / which can be hard coded? So we have a nice solution, because now if we create new pages, we can just go into Lovable Cloud and we can register them so that they are also easily registered for SEO. So we're essentially building our own interface to enable SEO on even more pages. So let's take a look at this. I'll create a database table to store static routes and update the sitemap edge function to load them dynamically. And then another thing that we should also do is we should probably also set this up to be fetched from Netlify, but that may be already set up. So we'll take a look at this. So now here's what we need to do. We now need to just wait till this is updated on the back end. Now it will say done, created a sitemap routes table with your current static routes. So if we now take a look at Lovable Cloud at the database, we now have the routes with all the pages. We have pricing, posts, about, and contact. So now we have the change frequency, the priority, if they are on or not. So we can now easily register those pages for SEO. So now let's say, do we already have a setup for Netlify to fetch this from /sitemap.xml? And can we register the sitemap.xml path, right? Sitemap.xml with the Netlify pre-render. Let's send this into Lovable and have it set up this for our application so that we successfully have the pre-render feature going on and we optimize our site for great SEO. And then we're also going to register this with Google Cloud Console in just a minute, which is the ultimate way to get amazing SEO and amazing search engine discoverability. So no, we don't have /sitemap XML set up yet. Let me add a redirect in the Netlify TOML to make the sitemap accessible at /sitemap and update robots.txt. Regarding pre-rendering, the sitemap doesn't need pre-rendering since it's already XML generated server-side by the edge function. Pre-rendering is only for HTML pages that need JavaScript to pre-render. Done. Added sitemap XML redirect. Okay, let's say make it accessible from slash sitemap.xml and slash sitemap, as I do not know what path the crawlers may take. Right? So it's kind of like a little bit of a best practices in case it doesn't use sitemap XML, which is the common one though, and just does sitemap. Some of them, sometimes it's a little bit funky where some tools just try sitemap instead of sitemap XML. So we're just going to do this as flexible as possible so that we have the biggest amount of compatibility with every crawler out there. Done. Both sitemap.xml and sitemap now point to your sitemap edge function. Beautiful. So now let's publish this and update this. So now everything is nicely deployed. And now we should be able to try this out. Let's see. So now we're going to wait till this updates, and then we're going to take a look at the Netlify deployment. Now we have this extension enabled, which is great. So now we can go to projects, we can open our site, and now there should be a new deployment. Oh, it's already done. That was quick. That was quick. Look at that. It's already done. Add sitemap redirect. So let's open this here. And now let's test this out. Let's do sitemap.xml. Oh, sorry, sitemap.xml. And it goes to a 404 page. So let's copy this, sitemap.xml. Now let's go to Lovable and let's say, when I go to, I get a 404 page. Let's take a look at this. I do think it could be the React router of the client-side application that's interfering with the route, which is a common problem with Netlify sometimes. So let's go into chat mode so we have better access when it comes to Lovable, looking into the documentation, taking a look on the internet, how other people solve this. I think what's happening is there's an issue with the routing where for some reason the React router is catching it as a server-side setup and not as a custom redirect that can be configured in the Netlify TOML file. So let's take a look at that. The Netlify function is live and the Supabase function is also live. Okay, so the Supabase one would be this one. Let's try copying this and let's see if this one actually works. This one takes forever to load. And it gives us missing authorization header. That is the problem. This one fails. Okay, let's do a little bit of debugging. Let's say when I open the Supabase XML function, I get, and you can test those by just opening them in the browser. Because I think it automatically added authorization, because Lovable loves authenticating edge functions, even though they don't need authentication, because it's a built-in security feature, and they really care about security, which is great, but we want crawlers to scrape them, so in this example, it's not too great. Okay, the 404 error is because Supabase edge functions require JWT authentication by default. Your sitemap function needs to be made public so crawlers and browsers can access it without authentication. Let me check the current Supabase config TOML to see the configuration. I found the issue. So now, here's what it's doing. Make sitemap function public. It will update the Supabase config TOML file. Then, update Netlify TOML redirects. Change the sitemap redirects to proxy to the Supabase edge function URL. Update sitemap URL in sitemap function. There you go. Beautiful. And this will be the sitemap URL. Step robots.txt to call this one here. Perfect. Let's implement the plan, and then if you have a custom domain on your Netlify site, just tell Lovable about your custom domain so it sets it up with a custom domain. I'm not going to buy a custom domain just for this video, but it's very simple. Just go into Netlify, purchase a custom domain or connect with your existing one, go into Lovable, tell it, hey, I just purchased this custom domain, update all the routes to use this custom domain so it's all on brand, and it'll do a great job at it. So now, let's take a look at this. It's now editing the files, setting all of that up, and now the sitemap is public and accessible at both sitemap XML and /sitemap once deployed. Let's make sure to publish and update this, and now we should be good to go with Netlify, and hopefully we have the sitemap all configured now, which will dynamically load our blog post, which is so essential for good SEO, and will also dynamically configure and set up those paths for all other static pages. So let's take a look at this. Let's just reload the Netlify page, and let's take a look if this deployment is done. Yes, make sitemap public. So let's open this page here, and let's try this again. We go on /sitemap.xml, and let's take a look at this. It still goes to a 404 page. So let's double check what's going on here. The routing doesn't seem to be that correct, and there's no pending deployment, so there's nothing that would make me assume why this is not working. So let's go into the chat mode. Let's say, when I open, I still get a client-side 404 page from my React app. Okay, let's send this. And I do think, again, we do have a routing issues where the redirects are not completely correctly configured to be a server-side redirect through a reverse proxy in Netlify. So we'll see what's going on. Let me check the _redirects file. I suspect it might be overriding the netlify.toml redirects. Let's see. Found the issue. You have a public /_redirects file that's conflicting with the netlify.toml configuration. The problem in Netlify, when both _redirects and netlify.toml exist, _redirects precedence for redirect rules. Your _redirect file contains anything goes to index.html. This catch-all rule is intercepting all requests, including /sitemap.xml, and routing them to a React single-page application index.html file. So the homepage of our client-side static Lovable project, which then shows your client-side 404 page. So we have to update the redirect page to specifically route the /sitemap and /sitemap.xml file to our server function, returning the sitemap, so Google knows all the dynamic pages for blog posts, for marketplace listings, for whatever that exist on our project, so it can crawl them. So there are two core components to this. It's knowing which pages exist. That's what the sitemap does, and then actually accessing the content on those pages. That's what the pre-rendering is doing. And then the sitemap also helps the pre-render to pre-render and get ready for those pages to then serve them, right? So there you go. Let's make sure that we publish this in Lovable, and then we'll take a look at the deployment in Netlify, and hopefully this is now then all working nicely and easily. So it's still updating. We'll wait a little bit, and now we'll take a look at Netlify. Let's just reload this page. Very simple and easy. It just deleted the, _redirects. So let's test this out one more time. Let's try /site/sitemap.xml. And now it's going to our dynamically generated sitemap file, which will tell Google, Bing, ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude, and all of the other ones, which pages exist on our application, even the dynamic blog pages that come from Lovable Cloud or Supabase. So this is the key to have amazing SEO, but it's only the first step. Now the second step will be doing the pre-rendering. So I hope that this pre-rendering now works. We'll test this out. So the pre-rendering now should work if we try this again. So now we need to change this Lovable URL to be a different URL. This will be our Netlify link. And let's go in Netlify. It could, again, take a little bit to render this correctly. But let's copy this. Let's go to our pre-rendering test tool. let's paste this in here. And I'm just going to go and simulate the Google bot. So this is what the crawler would normally do. So now we are going to load this application, and it's now doing the server-side rendered version, and hopefully the pre-rendering is successfully working. Now, the fact that it's taking a little bit to load the site tells me that it is pre-rendering the application and getting a static file ready, because it takes a little bit to fetch the server-side rendered version if you just set up pre-rendering, because it will kind of like generate them on demand whenever a crawler requests them. So the pre-rendered version did not load in 15 seconds. Yes, this is usually happening when you just set up pre-rendering, and it's actually a good sign because it shows us that Netlify is still working on pre-rendering all the pages. It can take a little bit to have it all correctly set up so they can get properly crawled. If you do pre-rendering compared to server-side rendering, there's always going to be a little bit of delay to make sure that all pages are cached. So we just rerun this. And I do have to unlock to get more free checks, so let me just log in for that. So now I got amazing news. I signed up for it, and as you can see, the pre-rendering is now successfully working, and the server-side rendering on demand and creating those static pages, because now, as you can see, the server-side rendered version looks exactly like the version that the user will see, because now our server is returning the static HTML, which means that this page is now 100% crawlable by all the web scrapers. All the keywords on the page will be found, and you will have great SEO. So now to get this out of the door and quickly into Google, we need to register for the Google Search Console. So we go to Search Console from Google Search Console, and we'll go to Google Search Console. Now we'll go on Start Now, and we will just register our application. So in this example, I'm just going to add my domain in here, okay? So let's go to our domain, which in this example will be our domain here. We may need to add a custom domain to have this because it's running under Netlify, but I just want to show you how you would do this. But ultimately, you would want to have a custom domain for it to, now register your server-side rendered version or static site generated version and get that all into Google. But you would just paste this in here, right? And you would just remove the path at this here. And you would remove the HTML, and we will just continue. Now it's checking the verification. It will likely not pass the verification because we need to register this all with the domain. Let's verify this later, right? So we should have our property now added inside of here. You see the Netlify app that I have. So we actually need to verify it. So let me actually just buy a domain. I think this will be simple. So now I'm going to make a tutorial how to buy a domain on Netlify. Let's go on quick setup in Netlify. Let's call this mini apps. Oh no, actually it's going to break the whole thing with the setup that we have for now. Let's actually skip the step. Let's just reload. I don't want to change the name actually, because then I have to redo the entire setup. So, there's a beautiful saying called "Don't fix what's not broken," and I am a fan of that. So, I think we broke it now. It doesn't load. Let's go back to projects. I think I already changed the name. Let's go to projects on Netlify. Go back home. Oh, this doesn't look good. Let's go on here. Let's go on quick setup. Skip the step. Buy a new domain. Okay, domain or keyword, mini apps. Let's call it cool mini apps. Let's search. Okay, cool mini apps. Oh my god, it's $14. Let's buy this. Okay, let's buy for $14.99. Coolminiapps.com. It's going to be the silliest purchase I've ever made. So now it's under coolminiapps.com, which can take a little bit to provision the SSL and all that kind of stuff. So this can take sometimes 1 hour or maybe even 2 hours for it to be correctly set up and linked. But I'm just going to copy this already, go into Google Search Console. I'll paste my domain in here, which is Cool Mini Apps. Let's continue. And now it starts the verification for the site. And we need to now verify that we are indeed the site owner for SEO purposes. So we can just do a CNAME record here or a TXT record, which is the easiest one. So now we need to copy this, and we now need to set up this Google site verification TXT record. Okay, so now we go into Netlify, and we now need to take a look at our domain. I think it's under project configuration. I never purchased a domain from Netlify, so this will be as new to you as it will be new to me. So let's see, project details, maybe under project details. No, it is not. Oh, this will be fun. Oh, domain management, it's here. Okay, so now we have the domain management, via verified DNS, provide your own. So the SSL certificate is done, so it may be still cached. It can take a little bit for those to, provision correctly. And yeah, it's still propagating. Domain aliases, okay. So now we need to take a look at our domain. So let's make sure that let's go on options here. Let's go to DNS panel, right? So now we need to go and do DNS panel. Let's add a new record. The record type will be TXT for text record. Okay. And now the value should be Google site verification. So it would be this value here, and the name would be Google site verification like this. So the name will be Google site verification. The value will be the code that you got from Google. Now the time to live, I'm just going to leave it out, and let's save this. So now we have added this verification record here, so we can crawl it with and verify the authenticity with Google. So let's verify this. This may take a minute. It can also fail. Don't be scared when it fails. Let's go on OK and just keep trying a little bit more. It could be that it needs to be on the add one, but I think it's usually copy this TXT record below into your TXT configuration. Now this should be correct. It can always take a little bit. Always retry it a little bit, let it sit, because it's not fully propagated. Our entire homepage isn't even loading yet. Right? So I'm just going to let this sit for an hour or two, and I'll be back when it's working, and then we'll get this all registered with Google. We now have a sitemap that's being dynamically generated every time we add a new post. The sitemap updates. We have pre-rendering crawling set up with server-side rendering, as you can see inside of here, or to be precise, static site generation, because it always creates copies on the fly as content changes on a regular basis. We got everything now set up that a good SEO application needs. We can keep making updates directly inside of Lovable, and we got top tier hosting with Netlify. Now we just need to wait till the custom domain is all set up, which this will happen as you saw inside of Netlify. We'll wait a little bit and we'll be back in for you a second, for me maybe a couple of hours. So it's still not successfully indexing or, creating the verification with Google. Now, I do think the problem is because we should try it with the CNAME. I think that'll be a little bit easier. So under the first step here, let's click on CNAME and let's get rid of the other setup and let's try the CNAME setup, which usually is always a little bit simpler. So because now, as you can see, the custom domain does load the page. So we should be all good on that front. So let's go here and let's change this one here. Let's edit this one. We could just delete this one, actually, the Google site verification one. Let's add a new record here. Let's do a CNAME record, okay? And then we'll go back to Google. We'll copy the CNAME label host, this one here. And we'll go back to Netlify. We'll paste the name inside of here. And then we'll copy the value, the destination. We'll copy this one here. This one in here, beautiful. And then we'll paste the value inside of here. We'll save this. Now it has been added. This should be all good. So now let's go back to Google, try this again. I think this will be an easier way to set it up. And as you can see, the ownership was verified. So let's go to this property in the Google Search Console. Now the only thing we need to do to get this indexed is go to sitemaps, and we need to enter the link to our sitemap. In this example, if we go to our Netlify project here by going on projects and by going on cool mini apps, we can just open cool mini apps and we'll do /sitemap.xml, right? And when we open this, as you can see, we are, remember, getting our dynamic sitemap with all the pages that are being dynamically added into it that should be indexed with Google. The problem is this uses the Netlify domain and not our custom domain. So we will need to fix this later on. But for now, we can go into the Google Search Console, paste this sitemap link inside of here with our custom domain, very important. We'll submit this. Now it's submitting the sitemap to Google, and now it will start crawling our pages. Now, there are a couple of errors, but this is only because they are different links, as you can see. So let's start fixing it. Let's copy our custom domain here, coolminiapps.com. Let's go into Lovable. Let's say I updated my domain on Netlify to be a custom one. Update it. Okay, let's send this to Lovable. Now this will automatically set everything up. So it will generate the correct sitemaps. It will use the correct variables in the project, and then we have this all nicely set up, and then we'll get this all scraped and all indexed beautifully by Google to have amazing SEO, a combination of registering our custom sitemap with the Google Search Console that is being dynamically generated, the more blog posts we're adding to our site, and we also then have our static site generation with server-side rendering, so we get the content always to the crawlers, and they can actually take a look at the site and scrape the content from here and don't have to just look at a blank page and assume what would be on there and just throw it into the garbage. Okay, so now we updated the sitemap function and the robots.txt file. Let's update this. So this will now then, again, create a new build in Netlify. If we reload that, this will update the page. As you can see, it just updated already. It's very fast getting this all nicely set up. So now if we take a look at our sitemap again and reload, you will see that the sitemap will now load from coolminiapps.com. So when we now go back into sitemaps on Google, we just do got it, we should be able to either delete it and add a new one again, just add it one more time again to re-trigger it. Or let's see, URLs not allowed. I think it'll try indexing it a little bit later. So remove sitemap. Let's just try removing the sitemap here, right? And let's now go to here and copy the sitemap link again. So our domain /sitemap.xml. We'll go into the sitemap section in Google Search Console. We'll submit this. Now it's submitting the sitemap, and now there shouldn't be any issues. So let's take a look at this. Sitemap processed successfully. Beautiful. Let's reload this. And now, as you can see, our sitemap was successfully accepted without any errors. So now we are registered for SEO with Google, not just our static pages, our homepage, pricing page, etc., but also our blog posts, which ultimately will help you get discovered by search engines, get discovered by AI tools, so you can really implement a beautiful content strategy to get, eyeballs on your application. So let's see, is it really working? Is it still working? Are we still loading those dynamic pages? Let's try opening a blog post. This is usually how most people will get discovered on the internet. Let's copy this and let's test the server-side rendering for this blog post in this SSR tool. We'll make sure that we are on the Googlebot, the crawler, right? And let's try rendering this. So this is probably, again, because we just changed the custom domain, it'll probably take a little bit to render it because it does it really on demand. Now, Google will try scraping them, once every few days. So it will create copies every time there is a crawled version. Okay, as you can see, there you go. It now crawled this version, and this version here is already the version the server-side rendered one. So the server is responding with the actual content on the site. This is what the user sees. Now, this is what Google sees. This is very important because normally, as you know, it would be a wide screen. So Google wouldn't get any content that it can take keywords from to then associate it with your web application or your website. Now, Google sees the actual content and it can then, scrape this. Now, the first scraping will always take a couple of seconds, as it states, but if I rerun this now, it'll be pretty snappy and pretty fast because it can take always a little bit for server-side rendering to be successfully set up. But now, as you can see, it loaded this in a timely manner because it always optimizes it. So the more you scrape, the better it gets. So what you could technically do is you could build a little API on a daily basis trying to scrape your own sites with a user agent that looks like a Google bot just to keep always the versions fresh, so the scrapers have an easier time scraping your sites, but they should be able to retry and they have all that kind of logic, so I wouldn't really worry about that. And the nice thing is, if I visit the site directly here on my browser, it will also load beautifully. This is obviously client-side served, but when a robot takes a look at your site, such as the Google sitemap robot that scrawls this for Google indexing, or the ChatGPT crawlers, you will get this now, and you get a pre-rendered, pre-hydrated version of your application. So you can take the keywords and index those pages, your blog posts, your pricing pages, all those pages with Google, so you can have thousands of blog posts if you want, and then they help you just get discovered by Google. As you can see, we are passing all the best practices here. We're loading all the meta information. So all the stuff loads successfully now. We could extend this, add more meta tags to the blog post pages, but this is just SSR or static site generation working beautifully here. We got this set up. Now we can tune this, we can enhance it. We can tell it to, add social sharing meta tags or all that kind of stuff. So like with Open Graph Images, if we try to share something on X, we can also try that. It will then probably generate some fake images. So you have like this preview when you share links on X and all that kind of stuff. So we can really extend this now because of this beautiful server-side rendering implementation for static site generation. So it's really cool what we can do, and you can just extend this from here. You can ask Lovable to really, add custom meta tags to this that are being populated and hydrated dynamically. You now got the entire static site generation setup for great SEO build inside of Lovable. If you have any questions about this, please let me know in the comments. And I'd appreciate it if you could give this video a like, share it with someone who will benefit from this video, leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out any exciting, Lovable videos, tips, and tricks, like this one. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.